She accused the Indiana Fever fan base of being racist. They investigated it. They said those accusations were false. The least that she could do is apologize to our great state and the fans that show up at these games and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Obviously, she's not going to do that. But also, Dan, why isn't the Indiana Fever apologizing to their own fan base for putting them through that, for going through those types of accusations? I mean, those are awful accusations. They weren't true. The fans weren't shouting racial slurs toward Angel Reese or opposing players. I mean, where is Caitlin Clark? Where is the Indiana Fever? Where is the WNBA saying that investigation there shouldn't have been an investigation? The allegations were false. Where's the apology? It hasn't happened. It's disappointing. As someone who is, my daughters are fans of the team. They've gone to games to see Caitlin Clark. It's so demeaning to our state and to the fan base to go through something like that. The least they can.
Brittany Griner panics after governor announces major action for false claims against Caitlin Clark. Brittany Griner thought she could get away with her controversial comments about Caitlin Clark, but Indiana Governor Braun just dropped a political bombshell that sent shockwaves through the WNBA. The league recently investigated fabricated claims against Indiana Fever fans, while completely ignoring legitimate concerns over Griner's now viral video. That selective outrage isn't going unnoticed. With political pressure mounting, it looks like heads may finally roll. So, does the WNBA's double standard in handling complaints reveal a clear bias against Caitlin Clark and her fanbase? Well, look who's suddenly under fire now that someone with real power has stepped in. Griner had been cruising, thinking her remarks would blow over like always in a league that shields certain players no matter what. But Governor Braun just disrupted that narrative, and the fallout promises to be nothing short of explosive. Let's break it all down, because this story has more layers than a wedding cake, and twice the drama.
Everyone deserves the right to play. Everyone deserves the right to come here, sit in these seats, and feel safe, and not feel like there's a threat or they can't be who they are. Definitely will be speaking up against that legislation and those laws that are trying to be passed, for sure.
The WNBA spent time and resources investigating completely fabricated claims that Indiana Fever fans hurled hateful comments at Angel Reese after the Chicago Sky got blown out by 30 points. The accusations were so clearly false that even the league had to admit they were unsubstantiated. But here's where things get really interesting. The league rushed to investigate phantom racism against Reese, yet completely ignored a viral video of Brittany Griner that has millions convinced she referred to Caitlin Clark as trash and ing white girl.
Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever are the best gift that the WNBA has ever had. I mean, and the fans that show up and pack that place, I mean, sell out crowds every time Caitlin Clark plays. It's so great for Indiana, but it's good for the WNBA. But how dare you accuse our fans, the Hoosiers that show up at these games, being racist when they're not? I mean, that was an opposing player who hates Caitlin Clark. Frankly, it's a great rivalry for the teams and for the sport. But don't accuse our fans of being racist. I mean, that's the kind of garbage that gets thrown around all the time. It wasn't true. The investigation proved it. And there was no outcome of it. There was no apology. Apologize to the fans. I mean, that's a simple thing to do. And I wish the team would have been more emphatic about that. Stand up, stick up for your fan base. I mean, that's who's keeping you alive. So maybe they'll still do that. I don't know. I mean, I tweeted that Angel Reese should apologize, and my tweet got a lot of reactions, but I'm not going to hold.
The hypocrisy is so blatant. It's almost painful to watch. The WNBA is quick to investigate invisible hate speech that doesn't exist, but when there's actual video evidence of potentially problematic behavior from one of their protected stars, they suddenly develop selective hearing and vision. It's like they've got a special superpower that only detects discrimination when it aligns with their preferred narrative. Governor Braun saw right through the double standard and called it out in the most diplomatic way possible when he said, "I think if there is some look into what Angel Reese did, I think it would be good to put that to rest as well." That wasn't just a polite suggestion. It was a clear warning. Braun was putting the WNBA on notice. Their bias isn't going unnoticed by people with real influence. Governor Braun made it crystal clear he has zero tolerance for bigotry and bullying. He believes that when someone crosses the line with their comments, it needs to be acknowledged, no matter who they are. But the WNBA seems to only acknowledge issues when it fits their narrative, protecting certain players while using those same issues to attack others. Now, let's talk about the viral Brittany Griner video that has everyone talking. In the footage, Griner appears to make comments that many viewers interpreted as calling Caitlin Clark trash and allegedly using a racial slur. Griner's defenders insist she was actually criticizing a referee's decision, calling it trash and a ****ing whack call. But here's the question. If it was that obvious, why hasn't Griner come forward to clear the air? Why hasn't the WNBA released a statement explaining the context? The silence is deafening, and it speaks volumes about how this league handles controversy. When there's fake outrage over non-existent comments supposedly made toward Angel Reese, the WNBA launches a full investigation faster than you can say, victim complex. But when there are real, serious concerns backed by video evidence, suddenly, they're too busy to respond. This entire situation reveals the protected class system that seems to be embedded in the WNBA, where certain players can do no wrong, while others are scrutinized for every move they make. Caitlin Clark gets picked apart for her facial expressions, her turnovers, even for showing basic competitive fire. Meanwhile, Brittany Griner can allegedly make inflammatory comments on camera, and the league acts like it never happened. The timing of this controversy is also worth noting. It all blew up right after the Indiana Fever destroyed the Chicago Sky in a game where Caitlin Clark didn't even play. The Sky were so thoroughly outclassed, it seems like a distraction was needed. And right on cue, unverified claims of hateful fan comments suddenly emerged, conveniently shifting attention away from the Sky's collapse and painting Reese as a victim. But Governor Braun isn't playing along. He knows exactly what Caitlin Clark means to Indiana, not just as an athlete, but as a cultural and economic force. She sells out Gainbridge Fieldhouse just like the Pacers do. She's reignited interest in basketball at both the high school and college levels. This isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about protecting a generational talent who has brought unprecedented attention, pride, and revenue to the state. That's why the governor's comments weren't just a mild suggestion. They were a shot across the bow, letting the WNBA know that their selective enforcement and biased narratives won't go unchallenged by those who actually matter. The growing hostility directed at Caitlin Clark may finally be reaching a breaking point, and not because of any internal action by the WNBA, but because political leaders are stepping in and demanding accountability. Their calls for equal treatment shine a bright light on what this controversy is really about. A league culture that has allowed, and in some cases encouraged, the vilification of Caitlin Clark while vilifying those who defend her. Attacking Clark has become acceptable, even fashionable, while any attempt to stand up for her or her fans gets labeled as problematic or divisive. Senator Jim Banks has already demanded an apology from the WNBA for its baseless investigation into Indiana Fever fans over alleged hate speech, and now Governor Braun is echoing that sentiment, calling for fairness and transparency when it comes to legitimate issues, not politically convenient narratives. These aren't attention-seeking outsiders. They are elected officials from Indiana, fully aware of Clark's monumental impact on the state's culture and economy. The fact that government figures are now involved should serve as a loud, blaring alarm for the WNBA. When your internal bias is so glaring that lawmakers feel compelled to intervene, it's clear the league has crossed a line. This isn't a matter of politics. It's a matter of principle, of enforcing the league's own rules with fairness and consistency. And then there's Brittany Griner, who has long enjoyed protection from any meaningful accountability. She's been insulated by her story and her elevated place in the league's social order. But now, she's facing scrutiny from voices outside the WNBA bubble, voices that don't care about politics, narratives, or media spin. The contrast in how the league handles controversy involving Clark versus anyone else is laughable. When Clark gets hammered on the court, media pundits ask whether she deserved it. When someone potentially makes inflammatory, even racially charged, remarks about her on camera, the league falls silent. Yet when unproven, likely fabricated, accusations are made about her fans, the WNBA jumps into action like a forensic crime unit. The investigation that Governor Braun is now calling for threatens to pull the curtain back on everything. Once real evidence is reviewed under a lens of equal standards, the league's selective enforcement and the uncomfortable truths it hides will be impossible to deny. What's most damning in all of this isn't even what Griner may or may not have said. It's the clear exposure of the WNBA's compromised, biased investigative process. They'll spring into action over rumors and hoaxes that support a favored narrative, but they ignore actual footage when it involves one of their protected stars. They shield certain players while letting others, like Clark, become targets of relentless criticism and even hatred. Governor Braun's involvement also underscores something the league has tried desperately to ignore. Caitlin Clark is bigger than the WNBA. She's brought in record-breaking attention, revenue, attendance, and visibility that the league has never seen before. Now that state leaders are defending her and calling out the league's dysfunction, it's obvious that Clark's impact transcends basketball. It's cultural and economic. And for Griner, the timing couldn't be worse. Already navigating multiple public controversies, she's now confronting the very real possibility of losing the immunity she's enjoyed for years. The protective bubble she's lived in may finally be bursting, and for someone used to special treatment, that reality has to be deeply unsettling. What makes this moment especially revealing is that Griner can't pivot to her usual defense strategies. This isn't about her past hardships or personal journey. This is about what she may have said about another player, and the fact that there's actual footage involved means there's no deflecting or spinning out of this. Now, the WNBA is cornered. They can either continue ignoring the Griner situation, inviting intensifying political and public backlash, or they can investigate it, and in doing so, admit that their prior silence was evidence of deep institutional bias. Either path damages the league's credibility. And frankly, it's exactly what they deserve for creating and perpetuating this dysfunctional ecosystem in the first place. Governor Braun's recent comments, urging the WNBA to embrace what Caitlin Clark has done for the league rather than diminish her through silence or internal politics, highlight the absurdity of the situation. Clark has delivered more attention, visibility, and financial momentum than any player in WNBA history. Yet, instead of celebrating that, some players and league officials seem almost committed to downplaying her achievements. The fact that elected officials are now stepping into this cultural and athletic controversy speaks volumes. This isn't just a league issue anymore. It's a national one. The fact that elected officials, including governors and senators, are now speaking out shows that this controversy has moved well beyond basketball. The WNBA can no longer sweep this under the rug or simply wait for the backlash to fade. When political leaders start making public statements, it signals that the situation has reached a critical level. What this also reveals is the deep hypocrisy in the WNBA's constant social justice messaging. The league often champions equality and fairness, but their actions suggest those principles only apply when they benefit certain favored players. True equality would mean investigating all claims with the same urgency and applying consistent standards, regardless of who is involved. Governor Mike Braun's call for formal investigation could potentially expose years of biased decision-making and preferential treatment within the league. Once this thread starts to unravel, there's no telling how much corruption and favoritism might be revealed. The WNBA has played favorites for so long that they may not even realize how obvious their bias has become to the public. Brittney Griner's apparent shock at facing real consequences is likely genuine because she's never truly had to before. The WNBA has shielded her from criticism and accountability through every controversy. Now, the very idea of being investigated for her actions likely feels foreign. Governor Braun's involvement also sends a strong message to other politicians. This issue matters to constituents. Caitlin Clark has a massive national fan base, and that fan base votes. When elected officials begin publicly defending her and calling out institutional bias, other politicians will undoubtedly take notice. This controversy perfectly illustrates why the WNBA struggles with public trust and credibility. When your investigative process is so blatantly one-sided that politicians feel the need to intervene, you've lost the moral high ground. The league has traded its integrity for the comfort of protecting a few select players, and now it's being held accountable. Perhaps the most revealing part of this entire situation is watching the WNBA's carefully managed narrative crumble in real time. They've worked tirelessly to downplay Caitlin Clark's historic impact while elevating others, but it's become increasingly clear that this imbalance is unsustainable. What's being exposed now is essentially a protection racket for preferred players. Governor Braun's comments about Indiana being the basketball state and Clark being in the right place highlight how this situation has both regional and economic significance that goes far beyond sports. When you attack the one player bringing unprecedented attention, revenue, and energy to an entire state, it should come as no surprise when that state's leadership fights back. The WNBA's house of cards is collapsing, and Brittney Griner is finally about to face what real accountability looks like. Governor Braun may have just changed the entire conversation by demanding equal treatment for all players. So, what do you think will happen once this investigation begins? Drop your predictions below, smash that like button, and subscribe for more breaking WNBA drama.